welcome back, and we shall start the third leg or the last leg of the course. What we want to start off discussion with are the frameworks part of the course. Specifically, today what we want to discuss is a quick introduction to what is a framework, why should we learn frameworks, why specifically we would like to learn Spring framework or any other framework that is, and we want to quickly start the process of learning the so-called frameworks. At the same time, we need to have a lab on MVC, and we shall do that after the class, after the first part of the class. All right. So let's get started. So we want to understand what a framework is, but before that, what we need to have a quick insight into is to understanding what are the different types of architectures of web applications. So what is it we have learned so far is we understand how to use servlets, JSP, core Java, SQL, JDBC, and using our MVC design pattern, front controller, MVC, singleton, etc. design pattern that we have learned. We know how do we build a web application, but we obviously need to build from scratch. But specifically, whatever is the MVC implementation we have discussed, it follows a particular type of an architecture, the architecture called two-tier architecture, two-tier architecture model of application. So we want to first understand, before we go into frameworks, that there are two-tier architectured applications, n-tiered architectured applications. So we want to understand the difference between the two and what is it we have learned so far. Until now, we understand that user sits on the client side. Typically, he engages with a thin client, a user agent software like a browser, performs actions. For the actions, the browser will convert the actions into HTTP requests, we observed, and over the internet infrastructure, the HTTP request travels, reaching a server where the web server software will be running, which is what will be waiting for incoming HTTP requests. We observed what is it that the web server will do, and what is it we would have asked the web server to do is to execute for every request. What in our application is the servlet. We call it the controller servlet or the front servlet. We know very well how does the web server execute a servlet. Is per request, HTTP request, it executes the service method by passing in a Java new request object, Java new response object. We observed, we would have a priori told the web server that for any request that comes in, for a particular URL pattern to execute the servlet, and we know if we want to execute the servlet for multiple types of URL patterns, what is it we do is URL extension, all the URLs we suffix with the .do, map star.do to the fully qualified class name of the servlet. We observed this is the front controller, so to say, that will be executed, and the controller will now decide either to execute the business logic which is encapsulated, we know, in so-called model. When to invoke the business logic encapsulated inside simple methods. So whatever methods, process method, etc., etc. So I will just call the method, or what it will simply do is simply forward the same request and response to your views formed by your JSPs, isn't it? So clearly, what is the controller going to do for every request? Since it is the front controller, the controller will come in, interject the request, and it will now perform an action. If there is any pre-processing, even to show the view to the user will perform an action for which the controller is executed. And what will the controller choose to do is either one of two things. It might choose to simply forward the same request and response to a JSP, or it might call the model, a method of the model, accept some data as a returned data, and then actually forward the request and response to your view. Either ways, whatever the view should display, what does the controller servlet do? It simply injects it and stores it into your request session or context, and then it dispatches the request and response to your view. The view can now access the data and render it or spit out the dynamic content, dynamic HTML into the response, which is what will travel back to the client, and the browser will render the content to the user. In this context, we observed if the model comes into picture and the controller servlet asks the model for some data, what is it that the model will do is interact typically with your database, and of course it might use some helpers to help it give some connection level access, etc. isn't it? So clearly, if you look at this MVC implementation flavor 2 that we have discussed in detail, and we have seen implementation of as well, we know there are primarily incoming data use case, outgoing data use case. Incoming data use case meaning the user will provide the inputs, typically as a query string, it will table to the server. We understand directly instead of hitting the controller, if for an incoming data use case we submit to a intermediary JSP. In the intermediary JSP, we ask the web server to instantiate a bean, populate all the user inputs, store the bean in the request, and then forward the same request and response to your servlet. Servlet will pass the data typically as bean, pulling the bean to your model. The model will store the data to your database, inform the controller success or failure. Accordingly, based on success or failure, the controller servlet will either forward to a success view or to an error view. Correspondingly, the view HTML will be spit out into the response, which will be displayed to the user. If the user performs an action to retrieve some data, again for that action, request will go, the web server will execute control servlet, invoke the model, connect to the database via the helper, pull the data typically as a collection of beans, or as a bean, or as a string, or as a primitive, depending on what data we want. That collection of beans given back to the controller, controller save it into the request scope, forwards it to the JSP using dash and dash in the JSP. Can we pull the data? EL and JSTL. So EL helps in pulling data from the scope. JSTL helps in performing actions like looping, conditional checks like if, performing a switch conditional statement, etc. So for performing simple conditional actions and looping, we will use JSTL. For actually pulling the data from the scopes, we will use EL, based on which we again spit out the content and the user sees the output. So either ways, incoming data use case or outgoing data use case, we know how to implement it using our MVC flavor 2 design pattern, and it works. And this more or less, we have already incorporated the best practice of separation of concerns. We know we get the power of reusability. The same business logic can be used across a multitude of views. It is easier to maintain. If you want to change controlling, you got to change it in one place. Tomorrow you want to add security, you won't need to do it in one place. Exception handling is done centralized in one place. Any business logic changes you need to do in one place, and any new view you need to add, you just need to focus on the UI logic. So easy maintenance, easy enhanceability are the two other side benefits of implementing MVC separation of concerns. We know this. However, this kind of an application is called as a two-tiered architectured application. Please note, MVC implements the layering principle. You implement MVC as a set of layers. The view layer interacting with the controller layer, interacting with the model layer, which interacts with the data layer. A layer is a logical separation of code base, meaning logically what the controller does is different to what the model does is different to what the view does is different to what the beans do is different, isn't it? So there is a logical separation of responsibilities. However, physically, where do all, that is servlets, JSPs, beans, models, your helpers, JDBC code, your all the scopes code, etc. All these objects, they're all Java objects, isn't it? All the objects physically live inside what? Inside your web server, isn't it? And yes, in your heap, specifically this web server is going to be running in one VM. Basically, the web server itself is a Java program that is being executed on a particular machine. So, physical collocation of code, physical classification of code is what we call it as a tier. I repeat, a layer is a logical separation of code. Logically, the model class and classes are different, the controller classes are different, the JSPs are different. But physically, are all of them put together and working in the same VM or not? They are all within the same VM. They are all running within the same web server. They are all running within the same box, same machine. That is what we call a tier 1. Now, the only thing that could physically reside outside of my code base and running in a different machine and still have the application run is what part of my application is only your database. Database could be running, as we very well know, in a different IP, and when we establish the connection, we'll give that IP as a part of your URL, which means in our application we have how many tiers on the server side? On the server side, primarily from what we have learned, are only 2 tiers. This is what is called as a two-tiered architectured application. Now within tier 1 we have 3 layers. You understand? the controller layer, the view layer, and the model layer. Within the tier 1, you have the logical separation of code, but tier is a physical separation of code, while a layer is a logical separation of code. I need you to understand the difference. Now, this works, by the way, very well as were what we discussed with the benefits that we discussed. However, this works very well for small time web applications, meaning small to medium complexity enabled web applications. We are talking about using JEE to build enterprise applications. When you are talking about enterprise applications, by the way, what is the biggest news in the enterprise today or maybe yesterday? Yes, Microsoft has bought over LinkedIn, isn't it? That was an all cash purchase deal. So this is the big news in a way, right? So in the enterprise space, typically LinkedIn is one of those Facebooks of your professional network, isn't it? So I'm sure everybody is on LinkedIn, isn't it? Everybody? Very good. Yes. So you should be on LinkedIn and you should ideally network there, because obviously that is where the majority of the professional network exists, and if you have a good LinkedIn profile, it's easy to market yourself, get opportunities, etc. Anyway, we'll come back to that and discuss it. Bottom line, we are talking about building enterprise applications for the businesses. When you look at it, typically the complexity of the requirements and business logic is so high that what you cannot do is build applications simply as two-tiered architectured applications. I'll give you some examples of why this is not possible. In reality, the reasons are much more deeper than what I'm going to discuss now. But having said that, unless you have an exposure to entire architectured applications, you will not be able to appreciate it as much. So I will stick to some simple examples to explain the point as to why two-tiered architectured applications are not as capable as entire architectured applications. Then we will blow up this schematic. Now think about it. If you talk about applications like, for example, Evernote. I'm sure you might have used Evernote. Evernote is what application? Evernote. No? Evernote is an application for remembering things, for tasks management, for taking down notes, for taking down voice recordings, for taking down clips, and that acts as a storage for you, using which you can store the data. You can store the data for yourself permanently, right? Anyway, if you have not used Evernote, I'm sure you have used WhatsApp. Yes. So WhatsApp is an application for communication, isn't it? We know that very well, and we use it daily. And of course, thank God, no need to pay anything for any message anymore, and no need to ever worry whether our message reached the person or not. Correct, no? 2 tick means it has reached. 1 tick means he has not switched on data, isn't it? Blue 2 ticks means we know exactly he has read it also and not responded. We can give him a call and scold him. Bottom line, I mean, imagine how small text makes a difference, isn't it, in communication. But anyway, we know how WhatsApp works, obviously. And primarily, WhatsApp is a what application? It's a mobile application, isn't it? So typically, the client side consists of a mobile app, isn't it? So the mobile app will interact with a backing web app. Because primarily when you send a message, that message is not directly going to your friend, to your contact. It is going to a backing web application. From the web application, the data is going to your actual friend or contact whom you are sending the message. So having said that, think about it now. Clearly, your web application has to be built for WhatsApp as well. Now, if you think about it, WhatsApp, when they built the application, obviously it has many business logic, many things that you can do. Initially, they built it, let's say, for Android type of a client. Then they built the same application for iPhone as well. Now, what is changing in an iPhone WhatsApp application? Platform. I understand platform is changing, but what is changing from application point of view? Mainly the views are changing, isn't it? The views that the user will see is going to be on an iOS device rather than an Android device, isn't it? Later, what did WhatsApp guys also release? Not only you can use WhatsApp on your mobile device, now you can use it also on your desktop, isn't it? That means you have a browser-based Android application, WhatsApp application as well. Now tell me, there are 3 different types of applications now for WhatsApp. Across all the 3, what are changing are only the views. I mean, in a mobile screen, you don't have so much space. So all the data you need to be able to scroll vertically. But in a WhatsApp desktop or browser application, you have a lot of width So it can give you two panes. On the left pane you can see the chats, on the right pane you can actually see the details, at the top you can have the menu and so on and so forth. So that means what is primarily changing are the views, isn't it? But definitely what is not changing? The business logic, isn't it? So that means what? If at all you are going to build a mobile app, if at all you are going to build a tablet app, if at all you are going to build a desktop app, clearly what is changing across the three are mainly the views and controlling. If when you click on a button in WhatsApp, what should happen? Where is this logic present? In your WhatsApp application on your mobile phone, when you click on a button, what should happen? Where is this controlling logic present? In your phone or in the web application?
Web application.
No, think about it. You click on a button. For that button click, what should happen? The on click of it, should the web application be interacted with or not? That code to actually interact with the web app, where is it? In the phone or outside the phone? In the phone, isn't it? I mean, when you click on something, what should happen is there in the phone. It will ask the web application to push the data, to get the data, to synchronize, to search, to whatever, isn't it? Basically, what should happen when you click on something is nothing but what we call as control logic. There is the control logic. Obviously, it is within the mobile application itself. That's why we know whether it's a desktop app or a mobile app, clearly what type of MVC do we implement, which flavor? MVC flavor 1. And in MVC flavor 1, what do you have? The views along with controlling logic, isn't it? That means when you click on any button now, ideally speaking, in a web application, in the backend web application, what should be executed? Controller should be executed. What should be executed ideally? Business logic should be executed, isn't it? So in your mobile app, in your tablet app, you already have the view, you already have the controlling logic. What is obviously not present in it is your business logic, isn't it? So that means when any user performs an action, ideally speaking, what should the controller or what should the controlling logic of the tablet app directly do is it should interact with business logic, isn't it? But is that a possibility if you have a web app built like this, where the model can be interacted with by your controller, and then there are your views? Now tell me, the only way to go to your model is via controller, isn't it? Who has complete access to your model business logic is your controller, and what will for every request be spit out is, what is going to be spit out? Yes, a response containing HTML. Now tell me, should a mobile app receive HTML for a request? No, it doesn't need HTML because the views are already there in the mobile app. What it needs only is data, not the view itself. Is this making sense, guys? When you search for something in your WhatsApp, or when you click on a button, or when you say pull or retrieve or whatever it is, clearly what it is doing is it will send a request to your backing web app, yes, but in the response what should be not contained is HTML, because WhatsApp doesn't show you HTML, but what should be contained is data, isn't it? And who understands data and who should be executed to spit out the data is your business logic, isn't it? That means there should be a mechanism for these type of applications to directly interact with business logic, bypassing this so-called controller with servlet which is there, which spits out, which forwards to a JSP which spits out only HTML, isn't it? How can we do this? We cannot do this if the business logic is coupled within the same tier, within the same machine, and it can interact only with your controller. Is that making sense? If a mobile app or a desktop app should talk to the same business logic, where should the business logic reside? Outside of this box, isn't it? It should run on its own separately, so that other applications and other technology based applications as well can interact with the business logic directly. Think about from a web application point of view. Think about, we have built an application which, let's imagine, latest tax policy that should be rolled out in India is the GST, isn't it? Hopefully it will be released this year or by the end of the year. Anyway, so this GST, when it comes out, there is going to be significant change in every enterprise application for calculation of tax purposes. So imagine, what is it we do is we are experts of GST, so we build a GST application. Anybody who fills in, so we build a web application where anybody they fill in data, what has been bought and what is the price and blah blah blah. Our application will spit out the GST pricing. Are you with me? So what is our application doing? there is a UI where the end user can say, I bought this cereals, I bought this toothpaste, I bought this blah blah blah, and it will spit out the GST. Okay. Now we have built our MVC with our business logic and embedded in our model. Now the same GST calculation, what is it we want to do is we want to go to Flipkart and say, look, people are buying GST, people are buying items on your Flipkart. You need to now implement GST processing. Why do you want to do it? We have already done it. We have already done it. So every time you want to make a calculation of the GST tax, all you need to do is you need to interact with our application. But our application, will Flipkart guy start keying it in by using a Chrome browser, etc., by using a browser? No. All Flipkart would need is business logic. Are you with me? That means there is one browser-based application should interact with our GST business logic. Then another third-party application like Flipkart should also interact with our business logic. When can this happen? When the business logic is separate, outside of the tier 1. It is running in a separate box. So for such necessity, for creating more reusability of our business logic, what is typically done in an enterprise app is an entire architectured application is built where your business logic does not run within the same box, within the same tier as your controller and view. It runs in a separate box. The moment you put it in a separate box, you now have a number of we have enhanced flexibility now. So typically you will see that in any entered architectured application, on the server side, you now have multiple tiers. You now have multiple tiers. Typically, the tiers, let me just write them as a schematic for it. So, the moment the user performs an action, yes, a HTTP request will go, but what will the request go to is a tier. Remember, a tier is a physical separation of code, and this tier is where, yes, your controller exists, is where your request response exists, is where all the three scopes exist, is where typically your views JSPs also exist, and typically where your beans are also created, right? All of these are going to exist in this tier, and such is what we call as presentation tier. What is this so-called presentation tier do? It responds for incoming HTTP requests with responses. The response typically is going to be of type HTML. However, it could also be of type XML or importantly JSON, right? JavaScript object notation. We'll talk about that in a minute, in some time. So I repeat, in a server side now, what is going to be your tier 1? Tier 1 is called presentation tier, where the presentation tier faces the user over the client side. Now, what does the presentation tier not contain? It contains everything. It contains your C, it contains your V, it contains all the data holder objects, etc. But it does not contain business logic model. So typically the model is now going to be running in its own separate box, and this is what we call it as business tier, or importantly as it is known in the industry, service tier. So business tier or service tier, and this is your tier 2 now you see. Now what should the controller do? When the user has performed an action, click of a button, the request will go and the web server will execute your controller select. Remember, where is web server now? Web server is only running in which tier? Tier 1. In tier 1 your web server is running. Now what is the web server, what is the controller servlet supposed to do? For every action the user takes, is it supposed to execute? Business logic, isn't it? But the business logic again is provided as simple methods only. Normal Java methods. Please note our model are simple POJOs, except these POJO objects are running in a separate VM, in a separate machine. So typically this VM could be different, will be different, and this machine itself could be different. So what should now happen? Somehow the controller should be able to invoke a method of the model, but the difference here is, and the complexity here is what? Controller is running in one machine and one VM. Your business logic and model is running as an object in another VM and another machine. So machine to machine, object to object, cross interaction must happen. Are you with me? And obviously what should be passed as parameter? If user has provided inputs, it is traveling as query string. Where will the query string user inputs be injected into is your main object. So the bean now needs to be passed as a parameter from where to where? It has to be passed over the wire. Remember, these two physical machines, they are connected over some network, LAN network or whatever network that is there, isn't it? So that means the bean has to be passed as the parameter now when the method is invoked. Alright? This comes up with us, this throws up a question now. How is it possible? Can a controller servlet call a method on an object which is not even there on the same heap? Until now, all the objects that we have created and invoke the methods, where do all the objects reside? Within the same heap itself, isn't it? You create model m is equal to new model means the model object is created in the same heap. M points as a reference to that object, and you can call m dot process, m dot register, etc. But here things are going to be slightly more complex. Why? Because the model doesn't run as an object in the same VM. It runs on a different VM and altogether probably different machine as well. Obviously, there is some mechanism where we need, some help we need, some library we need, which will help us in remotely communicating with an object which is not on the same JVM, isn't it? What is that basic fundamental library which we already named called as? No. That's the answer to the next question. The question where one object can invoke a method on another object, where that other object is running on a different VM remotely. That's the clue. It is called Java RMI, remote method invocation. Remote method invocation gives the ability for an object running on one machine to be able to invoke an method on an object running on a different VM and a different machine as well. Now, RMI is not necessarily the only thing that is used. There are other technologies that are built on top of RMI, other libraries that are built on top of RMI. But you're right. What I wanted to ask you as the question is this. The beans now needs to be passed as a parameter over the wire, isn't it? Normally all parameters in Java are passed by copy, isn't it? Passed by copy or value. Now clearly when you pass a bean object reference as parameter, only the reference will be copied. But here, look at it. Can the model object refer a bean object in a different VM? No. You can only reference objects that is there within same heap. You cannot have a pointer, you cannot have a remote from your house to your pakkadmane house, to your neighbor's house, isn't it? Remote can exist and work only on the TVs that exist within your physical containment. Same way, you cannot pass only the reference here. What has to be passed is the entire bean only, isn't it? The entire bean only. This now should relate, and you already told the answer. This should recap the use of a particular part of Java IO that we learned, how we can pass and how we can convert an object. Obviously, you can't pass objects themselves as parameter. You convert the objects into a set of stream of bytes, and you pass the bytes over the wire, and you create a brand new bean object in your other end, and you inject all the state information into that, isn't it? This process of converting a stream by object into a stream of bytes and a stream of bytes back into an object is called serialization. Answer to the question, why should the bean implement serializable, is this answer. Are you with me? In a two-tiered architectured application, bean implementing serializable has no use. Alright? But the moment your model business logic is run in a separate box, now the entire bean has to be passed over the wire. Obviously, here is where the serialization kicks in. Because the bean is marked as serializable, that will be converted into a stream of bytes passed over the wire, and on this side we deserialize. That means a brand new bean object is created with the state being pasted, and that bean can now be accessed by your model. Having said that, this is what we call the service tier. This is where your business logic resides. Now, because this business logic is running in a separate box, tell me, can we have one more web application with its own presentation tier, like our GST application, Flipkart application, or some other application? One more application can also communicate with the same business logic or not? Absolutely yes. So please note, the number one benefit of implementing MVC we said is reusability. But that reusability is within what? Same application, isn't it? If you build a business logic as in model, that model can be used only within the confinement of the same application. However, in an entire architectured application, if you put the model in a separate box, that model and business logic can be reused across applications. And not only across applications, it could be built across, the applications could be built on different technologies as well. Alright? Something could be running on, it could be an iPhone application, it could be a Android application, it could be a web application, etc. Any which ways. So reusability is increased now because the business logic can be accessed by other apps as well. Now, the third tier is what we call as the persistence tier. Persistence tier. What is this so-called persistence tier? It contains a set of helpers. It contains a set of helpers which the business logic will now interact with, and these helpers will help communication with your actual data store or database. So this is what is your entire architecture model schematic, right? You have the presentation tier interacting with the service interaction interacting with your persistence tier. Many a times, by the way, this persistence tier is not separate, it is combined with your service tier. So you have your model with your helpers in your service tier, all right? And that's what you will see most likely. Having said that, the persistence tier can run on its separate box as well. Please note, this is a different VM now and probably a different machine as well. And certainly, this is tier 3. And what is tier 4? Obviously is your database, which is anyways, it was running on a different box, and now also it is going to be running in a different box. So you can see now in the server side how many tiers we have: presentation, service, persistence, and your data tier. So we have 4 tiers, and these 4 tiers are what we typically call, the moment it becomes 2 plus tiers, we call it as entire architecture applications. All right, and please note, depending on the nature of the enterprise application, you can have more tiers as well. One of the tiers that might come in between is a messaging tier, where the business logic sends messages to a message queue, and there will be a persistence tier which consumes the messages and performs some actions, right? Usually there is a big there is always many of the enterprise applications, typically there is always something called messaging that comes into picture, where the business logic sends messages and the persistence tier consumes the messages and performs actions. Now, please note, I am trying to tell you something which probably most of us have not seen yet, and it is very difficult to explain something which we have not seen. You know that scenario, isn't it, where 4 people come and explain what animal that they have seen in Arab country. They say, there is this, we talked about it, there is this thing, it has huge pillar like legs, and it's like a wide pillar, and the other fellow says, what are you talking, it's not at all strong, it's not at all huge, you have a very soft carpet like skin. And the other fellow says, there is a huge pipe which comes out from the animal, which is used to swing and swallow things whole. And the final fellow says, what are you talking about? There is nothing huge about it. There is a small, what do you call that? Fan. There is a small fan, and that keeps, going left, right, and center. And obviously, you know what we are talking about, right? So clearly, all the 4 people were talking about an elephant, isn't it? Elephant, and this is, it's difficult to relate to this story because we have already seen an elephant, isn't it? Imagine if you never saw an elephant and you have to explain it to somebody who has never seen such a big animal. It is so complex, it's so confusing, it's so difficult, isn't it? You say the ears are so big, right? What do you mean so big, right? We have all seen small ears, isn't it? Very big ears means you have to imagine now, very big ears, isn't it? And so it's very difficult to imagine. So the same problem I'm facing now. Very difficult to explain an entire architectured application without having to actually make you work on it. So the best way to learn about entire architectured applications is after you work on it. But having said that, this is a quick high-level overview. It's a super high-level overview. But some minimum things I want you to take home is what? 1, a tier is a physical separation of code. A layer is a logical separation of code. Both will impact reusability, but which makes it more reusable is tiering. Because a tier is physically separate means the same tier can now be used across a variety of web applications which have different presentation tiers, thereby increasing the reusability factor. Obviously, reusability is more, but what is more also is complexity. Building this is more complex. In your MVC implementation, in your controller servlet, building a model was as simple as creating a Java object, but now we need to interact with a model object means there has to be cross-wire interaction using Java RMI or some other library that internally uses RMI. Obviously, there is more complexity in communication. However, that gives us more flexibility, isn't it? So why are we discussing this now is because each of these tires have a specific set of requirements. Each of the tires has a specific set of requirements. By the way, we call on the client side as the client tire. The client tire is also a tire, by the way, but that is its own tire. It is running obviously on the client machine on the client side, so to say, isn't it? So clearly we have an entire architecture application. Now as you start building applications, getting involved in projects in real time, you will start seeing the benefits of entire and also the different types of entire architectured applications. There are a variety of entire architectured applications, but at a high level, this is what it is. You have the presentation, the service, the persistence, integration of which will communicate, they will communicate with each other and communicate with your database to perform your logic of what is your business rules. Now, keeping this in mind, each of these tires, so to say, have a set of common requirements. Now, let's come apart from this entire architectured application and discuss about another fact. That is, we discussed in software, many requirements that we get will be repeating in nature. Whenever we get repeating requirements, what is it we don't want to do is build from scratch, code from scratch, invent a solution on our own, isn't it? It just takes too much time. Imagine if I have to wear some cloth and that is my requirement, everyday requirement, and I now start creating my own cloth at home. Then clearly that is going to take away a lot of time for me to create my own cloth, isn't it? And then wear it and then come. So instead, I could rather use the cloth that has been built by somebody else and use that time for some other productive purposes. So in a similar fashion, we observed whenever we have repeating requirements, we don't like to code from scratch. We don't like to invent solutions. We don't like to invent design. Which is why whenever we have that requirement, what is it we said we are going to use? Design patterns. Design patterns, we called it as nothing but best practice what? By heart this definition please. Best practice strategy. But for a what? For a what problem? For a recurring requirement or a recurring problem, isn't it? So this is what we call as a design pattern. A design pattern is a best practice strategy for a recurring problem. We discussed variety of design patterns. By the way, we said if at all you want to design a class in such a way that only one object of your class will be created and all the users of your class will have access to the same object, then what design pattern did we learn to implement first? Singleton. Then we said typically if you have a variety of enhancements and we have a variety of core classes, and what we want to do is we want to add delta functionality, the same enhancement to all the subtypes. Typically we said we will implement a best practice design pattern, which I did not show you code of, but which one am I talking about? Yes, I'll repeat it again. You have a set of classes with a functionality like file writer, like your file reader, your buffer, your filter reader, your sequence reader, piped reader, etc. And what is it we want to attach to all of them? Buffered reader delta functionality. Whenever you have the same delta functionality which you want to attach to a core set of implementations, what is the design pattern we said we will implement is called decorator design pattern. Then we said if at all you have a number of enhancements or number of implementations and we want the invoker not to get to know which type of an object is being returned to him, he is going to simply he's simply going to ask and we are going to create the object and give him. We will not allow the user to create an object, but the designer creates the object of any number of classes and then he returns the reference of the object to the invoker. What pattern did we say this is? Factory design pattern. Factory design pattern, where you have a number of classes whose objects are created by the designer and going to be returned to the invoker. The user does not create the object, the designer creates the object. A factory design pattern, again a recurring problem that we have, that we see. I will show you practically as well. I'll implement factory pattern and show you again. Then we discussed about, very importantly, the most commonly used design pattern, the most common requirement we have in all user facing applications, that is to separate the concerns. That is the recurring problem for which what design pattern we implement obviously is our MVC design pattern. And we observed, if you are building a web application has a thick controller, and what is the best practice to do so as to be able to easily implement pre-processing, post-processing, addition of security, addition of whatever front checks that we might want to do before processing any request. We implemented the dash pattern, front controller design pattern. Remember, because all requests are coming through the front controller, if at all you want to find out the IP address of every user who is making a request, where would you write the code to check the IP address and log it? Where would you write the code to check all users who are making a request, what are their IP addresses, and you want to log it? Where would you write this code? If you have implemented front controller, you know all requests are coming directly via the controller. That means no request directly goes to a JSP. If you did not implement front controller, if request could go to JSPs directly, then where would you have to write this code to log the IP address? All JSPs, isn't it? But now, if you implement front controller, all control is routed by the controller, which means any change you want to do, you can do it only in one place. Front controller design pattern. Again, the recurring problem that we face is how to ensure that all control goes via a central entity. That is why we implement front controller pattern. And what I would like to also take you through and make you go through is one more design pattern called DAO design pattern, data access object design pattern, which will help us in decoupling the business logic from the actual data logic. Right now, who is communicating with your database as per our MVC implementation? It is your model. Model is where we create your prepared statements, your connections, your set the data, get the result set, loop over it, put it into a bean, collection of beans, etc. Isn't it? That means our business logic is very tightly coupled with data logic. Why should the business logic know where the data is? It could be in a database, it could be in a file system, it could be in another web application. The business logic should contain only business logic, not database logic. Typically, that is why we'll take out the data logic from outside of the model and house it inside of a specialist called DAO, data access object. Data access object. That's another recurring requirement that we have, for which we implement DAO pattern. I will show you how to implement DAO. DAO always is coupled with factory, thereby implemented as DAO factory design pattern. So quite a few patterns we have discussed, isn't it? Singleton, your decorator theory we have discussed, that's more than enough. And we have discussed about factory, that you need to know the implementation. We have discussed about MVC, we have discussed about front controller, and I'm going to walk you through DAO. So many design patterns we have learned, and by the way, all these design patterns, probably except decorator, you need to have programmatically built the design patterns. All right, if you want, I will build all the design patterns again once and show it to you as a recap, but you should have ideally coded all of these design patterns as well. Once you code it, I ideally want you to mention this in your resume. This is where you differentiate yourself from the other hundreds of Java developers who are there, because it is not easy to learn design patterns. People don't know. Even if they know design patterns, they will not know where to use it. We know where to use it, like singleton. Where did we use singleton? To implement a logger, isn't it? And I will show you one more, to implement something called, to use something called as a connection pooler. MVC, we have clear-cut understanding, very in-depth understanding, how to use it for your flavor one for your mobile and desktop apps, and how to use it for your web apps as well. You have built a flavor 1 MVC for your core Java project. You are going to build a flavor 2 MVC for your web application as well. You have crystal clear clarity on that. You can talk for hours. Front controller is also something we attach to MVC, which is easy to explain. And you should also learn about factory and DAO. Usually they come together. I will show it to you once, and that also will be done. So once you know these patterns, you should mention it in your resume. This is where you will stand out very, very clearly. I will tell you one of the some things I want you to put in your resume along with your projects as well. But we'll come back to that. But right now, we understand that a design pattern is a best practice strategy for a recurring problem. However, who has to implement this strategy? Who has to write the code for singleton? Who has to write the code for MVC is? We have to do it. A design pattern is a strategy only. It just tells you a strategy, like wake up early in the morning, do yogasana with sukshma kriyas and prana kriyas for half an hour every day, and your life will be, your physical and mental state will be very, aram. You will not have too many aberrations. You will not have unnecessary ailments, either physical ailments or mental ailments. That's a strategy. But who has to do the work? You have to do, isn't it? Now, ideally what we want is whenever you have a requirement, and the requirement consists of many repeating concerns, many repeating requirements, so to say, for a particular domain, what we want is not just a strategy, we want a solution. What is a solution? A solution is code. Strategy is advice. We want code actually to speak. We want code. So what is it we want? Just like as we have discussed, you want to build a house. One way is to build from the scratch. It will take 2 years time. Another way to build a house is build half the house in a factory and bring half the house from the factory onto our site. How can you build half the house in the factory? The reason is very simple. 70% of all the house's requirements are common. Every house needs lighting, every house needs your electricity, every house needs plumbing, every house needs sanitation, every house needs light and wind, isn't it? Is this a very specific requirement? Are you going to say when you are going to build your house, no, I need plumbing specially. Come on, plumbing is needed for every house, isn't it? So these are common requirements that are there. So for these, ideally, what can be done is one best practice implementation for a solution can be done, so that all the houses will have a similar implementation of your plumbing, electricity, lighting, sanitation, etc. That's one of the common themes that you will see in US. All houses will feel they are the same once you go inside. Why? Because, and also not only you will feel that they are the same, the place where the place where you find the switches exactly same. Not like in India where you have the switch sometimes below, sometimes middle here, sometimes here. I have a switch in my house which is 10 feet height. That means you need a Batla ladder only to climb and to switch it on and switch it off. That's ridiculous, don't you think? Why should I keep a switch there? It's nonsensical. Why has it been done? Is because the civil engineer or whoever is the architect of the house, he invented a solution himself, isn't it? So clearly you will never find such a thing in US house, because 50% of all the US houses contain common requirements which are already built automatically in the factory and then brought forth, isn't it? That means what needs to be built actually custom to that owner is only rest of the 50%, isn't it? So tell me now, and that is why how much time it takes to build a house in US is only a max of 3 months as against 2 years, isn't it? So what is that? We have already talked about it. What is it we want is whenever we have a repeating set of requirements, when one requirement is repeating, we can implement a design pattern. But when there are many requirements which are repeating in a particular domain, what is it we want is not a strategy, but we want a half-built solution. Like for example, you want to hold many values, many elements inside of one bag, one kitty. We know what we can use is an array. But what if we want bags which are more sophisticated for search? What if we want bags which are sophisticated which give us a service for sorting? What if we want bags which gives us the ability to create a map or a graph? Typically, what am I talking about? Which half-built solution are we already aware? What is a half-built solution? It is a solution which you cannot run. It is code. It's a set of dot classes. It is given to you as a set of jar files. But it is half-built only. You cannot run it. You cannot bring the house from the factory, keep it on your site and start living there. Because it will contain only the foundation, the electricity, the plumbing, the sanitation, not interior decoration, not the rooms, not the pillars, not the top front, and etc. That all needs to be built custom, isn't it? So a half-built solution is exactly as the name suggests. It is half-built, it cannot be executed. But you got to take the half-built solution and build on top of it. Are you with me? So half-built solution for a particular domain. For a particular domain. Domain is bigger than a particular requirement. A domain means it's a bunch of requirements. It's a collection of requirements. That's what we call it as a domain. So what do we call this? Half-built solution for a particular domain is what we call it as a... Hello? You know this? Yes. You cannot afford to forget this, guys. This is extremely commonly used, and you need to know this. What is that? Is what we call as a framework. So understand the difference between what is a framework, what is a design pattern. A framework is primarily a solution. A design pattern primarily is a strategy. A solution means it is code. It has code that has already been implemented. However, what type of code it is? Not complete code. It is only half built. That means you can run it directly. However, you can use that code in your programs and you can build on top of it. What is the first framework we got introduced to is called collections framework. Whenever you want to hold the many inside of one, you want to have specialized search functionality, use implemented collection. You want sorting functionality, use tree implemented collections. You want to support map like functionality, use map implemented collections, isn't it? Are they code that have already been built or not? Yes. Can you readily use them in your program and take the benefit of it or not? Absolutely yes. Imagine if the collections framework was not there, collections library was not there, we would be stuck with arrays all the time, or we would need to build our own linked list, our own queues, our own stacks, etc. Right now you can easily build a linked list, stack or queue by using a linked list implementation that exists. So bottom line, we would have to build from scratch. Whenever we build from scratch, we take time. But if you go in for a framework, what is the number one benefit? Saving time. Saving time. Whenever you go in for a framework, because half the solution has already been built, clearly building the other half takes much lesser a time. By the way, how much time do you gain? Half built solution is half the solution, not the complete one. So you need to build the other half. So how much time do you take? So 50% of the time you gain, isn't it? Yes or no? No. Sorry. No. Why not? Take in a house, I say. What part of the house takes most time to actually construct and build? Ceiling fan, the painting. What is it that takes the most amount of time? The foundation. The foundation is the most important thing, isn't it? The foundation with your pillars. Not the roofing, not the rooms, not the separations, not putting things inside, not putting the tiles, not putting the paint, not certainly interior decoration, not moving things inside the house, nothing. None of it takes as much time as your foundation, isn't it? And foundation, is it very specific to your house? Well, if anybody comes to you, house is a special house, namanel foundation is. Foundation is there in every house, yeah. That is the most common thing, isn't it? So clearly, if you have common requirements across houses, ideally what we should want, we don't want to build them from scratch. We want an already built solution for a foundation, already built solution for electricity, already built solution for plumbing, already built solution for sanitation, isn't it? Then all we need to focus on is how to build the other half. And how much time does it take to build the other half? Not 50% of the time, drastically lesser time as well, isn't it? So the number one benefit of going in for a half-built solution, a framework, is speed of development. But that's not all. The more important aspect to learn is this half-built solution. Remember, what did we say? This half-built solution addresses common requirements. That means those common requirements are built by implementing design patterns. So what do frameworks implement internally? Frameworks are half-built solution code given to us as a set of jar files that internally implement best practice design patterns. That means, remember what is a design pattern? Is a best practice strategy. When we implement a best practice strategy, will we have the best possible results or not? Absolutely yes. Our design is the best possible design then. That means, if the framework people implement the design patterns, we now take a framework and build on top of it. This is your framework and this is our application. If our application sits on top of it, tell me now, can we say our application also is built on best practices and design patterns or not? Absolutely yes. Collections, only collections, internally implements about 10 design patterns. Many of us don't even know about it, isn't it? Collections internally implement your iterator design pattern, singleton design pattern, factory design pattern, your strategy design pattern. The collections internally implement so many design patterns, but we have not even bothered to understand it. We don't even need to. Why? Because it's a half-built code. I take it, I use it, build on top of it. Automatically, all the benefits of the collections design patterns will come to our application as well. That is the second benefit of using a framework. When you use a framework, number one, the time it takes to build your application drastically reduces. Number two, your application now is a best practice built application because frameworks are built on top of best practices. Frameworks internally implement design patterns. Is that making sense? Hello? Okay, it's a slightly difficult discussion to have unless we have gone through certain things and come back for it. Once I take you through spring and then come back to this discussion, you'll be, I got it, what you said, I completely understand, right? But before going through a framework, understanding this discussion is slightly imaginative. So please use your imagination, right? Relate to a house, relate to any of the physical thing that you see and it's easier to follow, right? Like for example, you have seen, I don't know, I forgot the name, right? Anyway, if the house example is a good enough example, right? So that's a framework now. You understand the difference between a framework and is a design pattern? Before that, do you know what a design pattern is and what a framework is? Do you know the difference between a framework and a design pattern? Please, by heart these definitions. They are not specific just to Java, they are common across technologies. It is important that you relate to this because every day in your professional life, some or the other person will be throwing these buzzwords at you, right? And sometime if you are in a meeting and you don't know what to say, just use these words and they will say chappale, right? Use that framework with this design pattern, but don't be careful not mix your decorator with MBC factory, right? And people say, wow, you know gotti undi, right? Just kidding, just kidding. But it's very important to understand this. Now coming back to our entire architectured application. Entire architectured application contains many tires. Each tire, what did I tell you? Each tire is a particular domain. Each tire contains many repeating requirements. For each tire, what is it we could do if we want? From scratch, we could build a best practice set of design patterns. But we are not interested in doing hard work. That's why. What does each tire now give us? What is it we can learn for each tire instead of building from scratch is a framework. So what is a framework from a web application point of view is nothing but a half-built solution that addresses the repeating requirements of a particular. When you were young, you would have played, no? Galiata, you have not played? Yeah. So tire, right? So of course that's not T-Y-R-E, but it is T-I-E-R, right? So a tire is nothing but a particular domain, and each tire has a fixed set of responsibilities and requirements for which are repeating which is repeating. We don't want to implement from scratch. That's why we'll go in for a framework that gives us the half-built code. And what is the benefit we get? We can now add on only the extra part, only what is specific to our part, our application. You build the foundation of the house in a factory, but what you need, how many rooms you want, what coloring you need, what tiling you need, all that should be dependent on us. That's specific to our house, our requirement, isn't it? So in exactly the same way, each tire now, we can use a multitude of frameworks. What are some of the frameworks that are used is in the presentation tab. I will just make a list. This is a quick introduction to the frameworks word. For each presentation tire, in presentation tire, there are plenty of frameworks that are used. Struts 1, Struts 2, Spring MVC, Play, Wicket, Stripes, and there are plenty other more. ... All of these are what? They are names for frameworks. And what are frameworks? They are nothing but a set of, from Java point of view, set of jar files. And what do those jar files contain? Java code, Java classes, but which internally implement design patterns. So that what we don't need to do, we don't need to build from scratch, we don't need to implement the design patterns, we need to just build on top of it. What is the first benefit we get when we go in for any framework? Speedy execution, speed of development. We will quickly be able to build code. Why? Because we are not building from scratch. As simple as that. What is the second benefit we get? Our final application is built on best practices. Best practices. That means the benefits of the design pattern also will get without having to build it, isn't it? And that's the two benefits, major benefits of framework. So there are so many frameworks here. In the service tier, you have again core Spring. And you have a standard, not necessarily called, not a framework, a standard, but I'll just put it together, called EJBs, Enterprise Java Beans. Then your persistence tier, you will know what do bears do in winter?
Connection code.
No, not connection pool. Bear, curdy. What do they do in winter is hibernate. Yes or no? Very drab topic, some little one at least. Hibernate, Top Link, MyBatis, right? All of these are what? They are all frameworks, half-built solutions But what is the difference now between Hibernate and Spring MVC? Without even knowing anything more, you can tell easily. What is the difference?
different domain.
Yes, yes. Hibernate addresses the repeating requirements of which domain? Persistence domain. Your Spring MVC automates and builds a half-built solution for the repeating requirements of which domain? Presentation domain. Presentation tier has a set of requirements which are completely different from the set of requirements of your persistence. Are you with me? Everybody got this, right? A framework is a half-built solution, but please note that half-built solution automates the repeating requirement only of a particular domain. So that means if you want to learn any framework, what is the first thing you need to know about? What domain does the framework address? What is the second thing you need to know about? If a framework automates repeating requirements, what is the second thing you need to know about? What are the repeating requirements of the domain? Correct? No. When you go and buy a foundation from a factory, you need to know what you get and what you not get. Because what you don't get, you need to build. What you get, you don't need to worry about. So which means the two things that you need to know about before learning any framework is what domain does it address and what are the repeating requirements of that particular domain. Once you know that, then we can begin to learn a framework. That's what is the process I will be taking you through over the next few classes. But having said that, you have so many frameworks now, and if these were not enough, remember client side I told you is also a tier. There are repeating requirements there. Please note, client side on a browser, typically what is rendered to the user is HTML, CSS, but what animates it is your JavaScript. JavaScript is also programming that you need to do. There are a number of repeating requirements on the on the client side as well. So many, in fact, hundreds and hundreds of repeating requirements. Yeah, we don't want to build from scratch. That is the reason why we have a number of frameworks of JavaScript, Dojo, Scriptaculous. These were slightly popular a couple of years ago now, and you have jQuery and very, very popular now called AngularJS. Right? What are all these? These are all again frameworks. Please note, these should help you to understand technologies in a better manner. This simple understanding of what a framework and what a design pattern is. All these are frameworks. Frameworks means half-built solutions. But these half-built solutions can be used only for automating the repeating requirements of which tier? Client tier. Only the requirements here, you see. So now tell me, will jQuery help me to store data in a database? I don't know where. Where is jQuery playing a role? Only on the client side. Will your struts framework help you to connect to your database? No way. The requirements that struts 2 automates is only the repeating requirements of presentation tier. Similarly, will your model help you to, your business tier, core spring or EJBs or whatever else, rules, there are a lot of rule engines here, rule engines that are used, etc. Anyway, that's not typically a framework, it's a tool as we call it. But anyway, the framework that you use for business logic, will it help you to interact with the end user? No, the repeating requirement it helps you is only for implementing business logic. Obviously, business logic does not face the end user directly. Are you with me? So there are a number of such frameworks, right? And by the way, on the persistence, you have your Hibernate, your Hibernate, you also have Spring Data, Spring ORM, Spring Batch, and Spring Data in short, right? So number of frameworks are there. Until about 5 years ago, till about 2011, 12-ish, right? Typically, you wanted to become an end-to-end web application developer on the server side. What is it you had to learn? You had to learn typically, the most popular framework then was Struts2 for presentation, Core Spring or EJBs for business logic, and Hibernate for persistence. Those were the 3 frameworks that you had to learn for you to be called as an end-to-end application developer. But today things have changed over the last decade or so, not last decade, from about 2008, 2009 onwards, and in India, in Bangalore, typically 2011 onwards, which framework has become even more popular than the most popular framework of Java were your Struts brothers, Struts1 and Struts2, and they were the most popular frameworks that were there, and Tapestry and other things. But from 2008 onwards, and certainly 2010 onwards, 2011 onwards, what has become increasingly popular is your Spring framework. Now, that is what we are going to learn. But why Spring? Why not Struts? Why not Play? Play is a more newer framework, more sophisticated framework. Why not something else? Well, for one reason, the beauty about Spring is it is not just one framework, it's a collection of frameworks. That means there is Spring MVC for presentation, there is Core Spring for business logic, there is Spring Data for your persistence. Apart from this, you have another 30 flavors of Spring. I'll walk you what that is when I talk to you about introduction to Spring. So the beauty about Spring is once you learn Spring, you can learn easily the other flavors of Spring and be able to build an end-to-end application. Today, the one framework using which you can build end-to-end application across all the tiers is your Spring framework. You understand? Spring MVC, Core Spring, Spring Data. But typically, still, what is a very, very popular framework that is used is your Hibernate. So that's why the general understanding of the world today is if you want to be an end-to-end application developer, what is it you need to learn? Spring with Hibernate. But that's not alone. That is on the server side. You also need to learn a framework on your client side. Until about a few years ago, client-side technology and coding was completely separate from server-side technology. Who developed this were completely different from who developed this. Even now it is true, JavaScript specialists are different than Java specialists. However, increasingly there is a trend that you as a developer should also learn how to use the frameworks built on JavaScript. So obviously we don't have time to learn the JavaScript framework. That is a separate 4-month course just to learn one of these frameworks, right? It's very, JavaScript is itself a language. Just like core Java, we would have to learn JavaScript. Then we need to learn Angular JS or whichever. However, we will introduce you to the fundamentals of JavaScript, which should help you to begin to learn client-side technology as well. Our server side is what we'll focus on, and the framework that we will be choosing is your Spring framework. For the simple reason that, one, it is the most famous framework today. It is the framework used by all companies. We don't want to learn a framework which no company uses, even though it is good or better. We want to use a framework which is used currently in the industry, and that is what is Spring. And second, the benefit of Spring is it gives you end-to-end web application development. For that reason alone, we will be starting to learn Spring framework. And what is the benefit we get when we start building the application using Spring framework? We don't need to build application from scratch. We don't need to custom implement design patterns. We already get half-built code, and remember, the advantage we get is speedier development. And how much speedy? Not just 50% time. I already made you a promise. I told you, the MVC that you are building with front controller, with interaction with your database, whatever contact app, the register login use case, the entire register login, edit account, logout use case, you can build in under 5 minutes. Under 5 minutes. And not only is it going to work like your application that you are building, it is going to be internationalized. It is going to be better. 5 minutes. Okay? 5 hours versus 5 minutes. That is the benefit that you have by using frameworks. Super fast, rapid application development. Obviously, that is the reason why today no application development happens in the world where application is built from scratch. You can do it, but it simply takes too long a time. That's why always frameworks are used so that we become faster in development. And that is the reason why we want to learn frameworks. Can you design your own? Your requirement only you will automate. But the typical design pattern implementations will be provided to you by the framework. Typical repeating requirements that you have, like for example, we will see as we go along. In every presentation tier, you need to accept inputs from the user. Whether you are building a Facebook-like application, social networking application, or you are building a payroll application, or you are building an ERP application, or you are building a WhatsApp-like application, whichever application, might we want to take user inputs or not? Is it a common requirement or not? All user inputs come as a query string. That means it comes as text, right? So what would we have to do in our Java application? We need to do data type conversion. You need to convert string to date. Anybody loves converting string to date? That is simple date format, parse, try catch that parse exception. That's nonsense, unnecessary code, right? You have to convert that. You have to convert int string to ints. You have to convert your string data type to Java data types. We have to write code for it. I'm giving you an example. If you use a framework, automatic conversion will happen. Who has to build this controller? Who has to build the interaction between the controller, the business logic and the JSPs? We have to build it, right? Now, what the controller does is not the question. The interaction we have to build. When you go in for a framework, you don't need to build it. Because who will implement MVC design pattern for you? Framework will. It is still your requirements you will implement. Spring does not tell you you need to build Spring's requirement. No. Spring is a framework using which you can do speedier development of your own requirement. All your own requirements. And not only that, why is Spring superior over other frameworks? Spring is a malleable framework. You can change the internals of Spring only. Forget building your application. Any application you want, you can build on Spring and in a faster manner. Not only that, the guts of Spring only you can change. It is exactly like your I don't know what example to give you. Which vehicle? I am just thinking. Which vehicle can you relate to? Yeah, okay. I mean, not a very good example, but Yamaha or Maruti is certainly not a good example, right? So maybe your Contessa Classic. Have you seen a car called Contessa Classic? Old car. Anyway, there are some type of cars in the industry where you can change everything inside. You can change the engine. You can change the transmission. You can change the axles. You can change everything, and you can put other vehicles parts into it. Now, you have a vehicle, you can drive it if you want, but if you want, you can change the guts of it also. That's the Spring framework, right? You will see. Your question will hold the moment I introduce Spring to you. Still, I have not introduced Spring. All we have introduced ourselves to is what is a framework. Why do we need frameworks? By this discussion of whatever 1 hour discussion we have had, you need to be clear, crystal clear about why in the development world people work on frameworks. In that context, please ask me questions. It has been a monologue for a long time. Please ask me any doubts or queries that you have. Any questions of any kind you have, please throw it at me right now. Any questions? Yeah. Spring? Yeah. So when I introduce Spring next, you will understand. Spring MVC, what it does is completely different from core Spring. What it does is completely different from, let's say, Spring Data. However, the core fundamentals of Spring is the same. I will, in our 1 week of classes that are remaining, we don't have time enough to go through all the flavors of Spring. However, we will learn core Spring and we will learn Spring MVC, and the fundamentals of what we learn is the same whether you use Spring Data, Spring Web Services, Spring for Android, Spring for anything else that you learn as well. That's the beauty of Spring. The core fundamentals is exactly the same. That's why we're going to be learning Spring Framework. Anything else? Sorry? They are all free. All frameworks are free. We are talking about frameworks in Java. All frameworks in Java are open source, primarily. Right? By the way, I told you we would discuss this. Tell me, what is the benefit of building anything for open source? Open source means what? First, let me ask you that. What does open source mean? Wrong. Open source does not mean free of cost. That's the common misunderstanding. Open source means only one thing, which is what? Answer in question, answer in the name. The source code is open for you to see. It does not mean free. That's a common misunderstanding. Alright? There are a lot of paid open source softwares. You understand? Like for example, Spring. You want support for Spring, you gotta pay. Alright? Spring is now owned by VMware. Right? They have a support for Spring as well. And you want that support for Spring, you gotta pay the money. Don't think open source is free. Open source does not mean free. Although many of the open source things are free, open source only means one thing, that is you have access to the source code. But that's all it means. Can you change the source code? Can you copy the source code? Can you make amendments to the source code? Can you enhance the source code? The answer is it depends. Every open source software is attached with a license. You have Apache GPL license, Google license, and so on and so forth, different licenses. Each license has different fine print documentation. So some open source softwares, they give you, as they are open source, they give you the ability to read the code, but only to read the code, not to make a single line of change, not to copy paste it even. You can say, sir, ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ code. I will control C, control V it. If somebody finds out, they will sue you. I'm sure you have been following, or if you have not been following, you at least know the lawsuit that Oracle has put on Google. Do you know or don't you know? No. Okay, this is very, very important. Who built your Java technology? Which company built it? Sun Microsystems, isn't it? And who bought Sun Microsystems is Oracle in 2007 or 2008 or something, right? Now, the moment Oracle bought Sun Microsystems, what Oracle found out first during the negotiation itself was that who was building a separate platform by using Java technology is your Android. Google guys, right? Android, of course, was built by Andy Rubin, but Google bought it and they started building on top of it. Now tell me, what is the core fundamental of Java? You create a .java file and you compile it into bytecode. And the bytecode should be runnable across platforms, is it not? But people who know Android, tell me, when you compile a .java file in Android, do you compile it to .class file? No, you compile it to DEX files, Dalvik executables. And that Dalvik executable, it is Java code which is compiled that works on only what platform? Android platform. I mean, can I take it to Windows and may have it be run? No. That means what has suddenly Google has done? It has fragmented Java. Java's originality is that it should be platform independent, isn't it? But they did this. And what did Google designers do? They took, Java was open source, right? They took their libraries. They took string.java and they copied it and they built their own set of libraries on top of it. The moment Oracle came, Oracle read the license of open source of Java and they understood that copy pasting is not allowed. You cannot copy paste string.java. You cannot make changes directly to the source code that has been released unless you engage with the company and give them money or royalty and whatnot. And some Google people had not done anything. They put the lawsuit. And you know for how much now? $9 billion. Oracle wants $9 billion from Google and they want Google to stop Android. This is the outcome. You know for what reason? Because in Google's source code there are 1,000 lines which are copy pasted from Java source code. 1,000 lines only. They want $9 billion. You understand? So that's why I'm telling you, open source code. And by the way, I don't know if you know what happened. Let me quickly brief you about that as well. This became a big lawsuit, right? And there was a judge. First of all, judge should understand what is happening now. I mean, he should understand now. So thankfully, the judge for whom this lawsuit was given to was a judge who in his younger days was a developer. He understood coding. And he said, by looking at detail, he said, I know what Google guys did at the behest, at the top, at the front, looks like, they did a wrong thing. Because in the open source license, it is mentioned that you should not copy paste it. However, I believe that Google engineers could have easily built those 1,000 lines of code themselves. This is what he said, and he threw the Oracle lawsuit. He said, Oracle, simply don't try making money from somebody else's, right? Get lost, right? And he threw out the lawsuit. Now the Oracle guys appealed again. They went to Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, already junior court has decided, I'll throw it back. And they threw it down to High Court. And the High Court verdict came last week. How did not know this news? This single thing influences our career for the next 20 years, by the way. If Oracle wins, Android goes down. If Android goes down, thousands of jobs are going to be at stake. I mean, it's not that people will lose jobs, but it will become at stake. And people will not start developing an Android, they'll have to choose something else. But that's why Google has already started building another language. But we'll talk about that later. But anyway, at the time Android was released, it looks like Google copy-pasted something and built it, isn't it? But because Android was released, it became a big shot in the arm for Java. Java was actually kind of going down. But because Android was released and Android applications started being developed by all people, primarily what language they started using is Java only, no? So it became a big shot for Java. Indirectly, Oracle and whoever was building on Java, they made a ton load of money. You understand? And that is why the new lawsuit also got thrown out. The appeal also got thrown out. And they said Google is not liable to pay even $1. big news last week, right? And 3 weeks ago, and 2 weeks ago, and then now Oracle says they will go to Supreme Court. Most likely, it is going to be thrown out there as well. But having said that, this is what it is. Be careful. Open source software doesn't simply mean bit T, right? That's our understanding. It's not so, right? It is tied to licenses. Depending on the license, you can either copy the, you can either use the code or copy the code or even make changes. There are some loose licenses, flexible licenses, where you can copy paste and do changes as well. So that's what is open source. So everything is free for you to build on. But if you want support, you will have to pay. If you want some enhanced support, bug fixing and whatnot, you will have to pay for it, right? But for us to learn, for us to build on top of, for us to build an application, you don't need to pay anybody anything, isn't it? Not like your Microsoft, not like your Oracle, right? Why Microsoft and Oracle lost out in this so-called development race is because of this reason. You want to build on Microsoft means you need to have Windows only. You need to buy the Microsoft Visual Studio. You need to buy licenses for it. Oracle, they have a fantastic database, and you can build amazing business logic in that database using PL, SQL, etc. But again, you are locked to only Oracle. Same way with SAP. SAP means you need to learn ABAP technology, primarily which it is built on, and you get locked into that SAP vendor, isn't it? So that's why Java won. Why did Java become number one? Is Java from day one, not from day one, but majorly it has been open source. Anybody can build a jar file, a set of a framework, and anybody else can use it. We can attach very simple licenses with it, no royalty payment, no payment anywhere, and that is when evolution happens. Evolution happens when things are free, when things are accessible, isn't it? That's when evolution happens. Imagine if the government says, silly example, but if at all you have to go brush your teeth, then you need to come to Delhi. We have a standard brush there, you have to use that only. I mean, think about it. You need to pay 5 rupees, go and stand in queue, then use the brush. I mean, if that is what is there, probably will not even brush once a year also, isn't it? Now it is available to everybody. You can go and buy it. You can go, and that is the reason why there has been evolution and innovation in brushes, isn't it? The brushes of 10 years ago, have you seen that? You Rakta will come out, right? But then nowadays brushes are so technology advanced. Why? Again, because of this. Any company can build brushes. They can invest in R&D. They can innovate, and they can build brushes, isn't it? It's not controlled by the government, by any one entity. That's why Microsoft, SAP, your Oracle, these guys kind of lost out to all the new age companies. The new age companies are your Salesforce, your Google, your Facebook, your LinkedIn. These are the new age companies, your Workday, and so on and so forth, right? All building on open source technologies. Anyway, that's basically a long answer to a small question. Okay? Yeah.
So for a curiosity,
Yeah.
some developing company uses PHP on Java. I mean, can you differentiate the?
Why what is used? Yeah. So question is, let me tweak the question a little bit. Which is better? Java is better or PHP is better? Java is better or .NET is better? Which is better? Java is better or Scala is better? Or Java is better or C# is better? Or C++ is better? Which is better? It's again asking a question like, which shoes is better, or which car is better, or which human being is better. I mean, there is no one answer. Each of the programming languages have certain merits and demerits. There is no perfect language. There is nothing called a perfect language. Every language has some merits and some demerits, isn't it? And typically, the power of Java is, one is it is platform independent, two, it gives you distributed application development, three, it gives you concurrency management very easily. Multi-threading in Java is very easy compared to the other earlier languages, isn't it? So having said that, there are certain specific needs for which Java should not be used. Other languages are better at it. There are certain specific needs for which Java-based languages are better in its ability. If you primarily want to build an application for Windows desktop, that is your aim. You want to build, like for Outlook, Windows Outlook or Windows Word, you want to build an application that takes some data from Windows Word, passes it into mail automatically, triggers an email based on some rules, etc. You should certainly not use Java for it. It is not the right fit at all. Instead, what you should use is C#, .NET. That's the perfect use case for it. Similarly, you want to build websites rapidly and you have very limited interaction with the user, very limited dynamic content. You don't have too much of business logic. No big database, no data transformation, no currency manipulation, money manipulation, nothing. Simple, basic. Like you want to have a small e-commerce site, right? Where you have a set of items, user will click on some things, he will search, he will add to a cart, he will go to PayPal and pay you money. For this, again, Java is an overkill. It's an overkill. What is better to be used is PHP. Lightweight. PHP is a language built for web applications alone. You can't build any other type of web application. You have a lot of support, and it's fast. And importantly, it is cheaper to run PHP applications. PHP is better in that. Are you with me? That's why many of them start you building on PHP. Then you have Ruby on Rails. You might have heard. Some people who got placed from your batch are working on that as well. Again, that is specifically used for a particular reason, for rapidly building web applications, for prototyping, for building a product, showcasing it, right? That is the perfect programming language to be used to actually build that. Then there are Grails, which uses the power of Java, uses the power of Spring and Hibernate, but gives you a language on top of it. Internally it is Java itself. Then there is Scala, called for functional type of languages, for functional typing and functional and programming that we want to do. So that means what? There is no perfect one language, and there are languages which have some merits and demerits. But also, just because a language is capable doesn't mean every company can use it. Because whom do they need? Are people who know that language, no? People should be there who should know that language, isn't it? So just because some new language has been released, a CEO cannot use, CEO or CTO cannot decide to use that language, because they need to have people who know it. What is the language which have maximum number of people knowing it, where even new freshers who code in that language don't do many mistakes, and which has a track record which of good existence over a period of time, where it has been used for a couple of decades, where there is documentation of every kind, where there is support of every kind, ecosystem is very good. You go to Stack Overflow and put any question, you search, you will get an answer. Java language. That is why Java is used the most for building web applications, enterprise applications. Not because it is the best. Don't be in that mindset. Java is not the best in any way, right? It is good in some things, very bad in some things. Like to build a small application, you have to write a lot of code. You go to Ruby, one line of code will spit out an entire login use case. Literally one line of code. One line of code will automatically create login page, automatically create tables in your database, automatically create your MVC integration, data invalidation, internationalization, everything. One line of code, right? That's much more faster than building using Java, isn't it? But when it comes to other things, there are certain caveats, right? Performance, tuning, so on and so forth. So that's where Java kind of wins over others, right? So that's the answer, brief answer to your question, right? So that's why all major major technology companies, be it Amazon, be it Google, be it Facebook, or many of the product companies that you might have seen, they don't profess to use only one language. They have multiple languages that they use. They use PHP also, they use Java also, they use your Scala also, Grails also, etc. But that's why, in general, what is said today for a developer to learn, what is ideal to learn is Java first, right? It shows you object-oriented programming, which is anyways common across languages. It gives you the power of understanding of how to build desktop applications, mobile applications, or web applications. And once you have good strength in Java, you can move over to other languages easily. Especially there are many Java JVM based languages like Grails or Scala or Ruby, etc. Right? So a lot of development is happening on all these things. And if you get placed in any of these different languages also, don't be upset. Oh my God, what is this? I learned Java for 4 months. I'm good in Java. I'm now placed in .NET. What will I do? Hey, you don't need to worry. You remember, just like Java is platform independent, you as a developer must be programming language independent. Come on, you cannot say ನಾನು ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ Java ನಾನೇ ಮಾಡೋದು ಇಲ್ಲ ಏನು ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. Right? I mean, that's ridiculous. What happens if tomorrow all the Java jobs are gone from the market? By the way, it's never going to happen for the next 30 years, but still. So if all the jobs are going to go, you will still say, no, Java nene marti, Java nene marti. No, you don't need to have that attachment, you see, and you don't need to be specifically attached to a language. Become very good in one language. Don't be like us, where in engineering we read some 10 languages over the, 4 years, that too for 3 months, that too for 1 month inside of the 3 months. That means you will not become good at anything. No, you go completely in depth, as the way we have done in Java. Complete in depth, but learn one language in depth. Then you start picking up skills in other languages as well. So over the next 5 years, this is what I want you to do. I want you to first become very good in Java, get a job, preferably in the Java platform, and start working and start learning the frameworks. But once you reach about 2 years, right? Your fundamentals will become super, is already very good. It will become rock solid. You will be minching like a star in your company. Without a shadow of doubt, I am telling you, you will be a star in your company, and you would be good in whatever are the technologies you would have worked on. But that is the time, then you should start learning other languages. Once you have worked on a particular language for a couple of years, start picking up skills in other languages. Because for scripting, Java is not good. Your Perl is good, your Python is good. For image processing, Python is very good. So there are specific reasons why some language is very good in. So we want to use that. If you want to buy cars in your family, you're not going to buy cars of the same company, do you? Are you going to say, Maruti car only I will buy. If you have a ready go car which has been released by Datsun, if you want to buy a car, probably ready go is a better car to start with first. Then after that you will probably go in for a Hyundai. After that you can probably go in for, I don't know, something else, a Skoda or a Volkswagen or something else. Then you will go in for a Mercedes. Then you will go in for whatever else you want. Bottom line, you're going to jump in the same way. Don't be extremely attached to any one programming language. Love the language. Don't be attached. I know it sounds ridiculous, no? How can you be in love but not attached? This is the fundamental best practice of life. Fall in love with everything. Don't be attached to anything. Because the very fact and nature of life is that of change. I hope you read Who Moved My Cheese? No. Thank you for those of you who have read it. Right? The one true thing that is constant is change. Keeps changing. Everything changes. If we only change, 97% of our body is not the same of last year. This is 2016 model you are looking at. 97% of this body was completely different last year. But you ange kanistudra sir. The physical appearance is different, but the actual cells in the body have regenerated, completely new. Completely new. Nothing in us is the same. We don't remain the same. We think we are the same. The sense of I-ness remains the same, but everything else is changing. Our thoughts are different. 1 year ago, how you were? 1 year ago. 3 months ago, how you were? 3 months ago, later, how you are? Isn't it? You would have changed. You would have changed. Anywhere, anything that you do, we change. Our thoughts change. Our emotions change. Our likes change. Desires change. Everything changes. Now you are like one person. Tomorrow you get a job, complete change. Your entire personality will change. The look and feel will change. Interaction will change. So even technology changes. That's why don't make the mistake of being attached to any one particular type of technology. But be very attached, or be very careful about the fact that you need to become very good in development no matter what is your chosen field. If you go in depth, doesn't matter which one. Today Fortran developer, you're a Fortran developer in depth, you will still get a job. COBOL developer, in depth, you'll get a job. C developer, to 1,000 jobs, companies don't know whom to fill, because no problem is nobody learns C anymore. They all go to Java, .NET, etc. Nobody learns C in depth, not C as in our college, in depth. You will get a job. C++, still thousands of jobs are there. There is no programming language where there are no jobs for good developers. That's why don't focus on time, don't focus on your percentage, don't focus on what is going to happen, etc. Just focus on going in depth. Once you go in depth, that's it really. And you have already come here. All you need to learn is what we have taught you. That's it. Getting the job is not the difficult thing at all. It is just that you need to master what we have gone through. You do this, I can assure you a job, no matter when. Now, 1 week down the line, 1 month down the line, come back 1 year down the line. I don't care. You say, everything that we have taught in the class, I know. Next day you will get a job. My promise to you. And any time, whoever, doesn't matter. Whether you pass, you don't pass, you fail, you go back and fail, or I don't really care. If you know everything we have taught, the job is assured. There is absolutely no doubt. It's a sure shot. You don't have another sure shot like this. So please, focus on learning this. because at the end of the course, after 3 months, etc., it becomes slightly, repetitive, and it becomes boring to come every day, listen every day, learn, right? It becomes difficult. Sir, break, right? Yeah, I know, because that's the incumbency, as they say, right? So if another teacher comes, you'll be like a little more interested. Right? And maybe after a few days, then I come back, you'll be like probably more happy about it, or what. That's why maybe the break of a week also, you see. Yeah, just kidding. So bottom line, I can assure you this: once you start working now, you will love to come back to classes. You will be like, yo, me sakti the classes. I wish there were classes more. So, that happens to everybody, right? Not because classes are very good. Classes might be gabbu, but you will want to sit in classes. You will want to read books. The problem is you will not have time enough, right? But any which ways, don't get attached to any one particular thing. Go in depth. Focus on everything that we have learned. The next 2 weeks, please focus on doing spring and the couple of projects that I'll ask you to do. If you do that, what I ask you to do, I assure you, we will back you until you get placed. That's my commitment and my word to you, no matter who you are. Right? You do the projects, you learn everything that we have taught you. We will back you until you get placed. I am giving you my personal commitment. The reason is very simple. The reason is I took a long time to understand this reasoning. Let me end it at this. Right? I want to talk to you about 3-4 things every day at the end of the class, but bear with me. I have digressed today anyways, so let me tell you. There are certain secrets to this universe, and I am a duffer. I took too long a time to find out, right? Of late I have realized this. The simple secret to achieving whatever is your desire, whatever you want in your life, if you want to get it, how do you go about getting it? Sometimes even hard work doesn't get us what we want. Sometimes even doing that same thing for a long time also doesn't get us what we want. So what is the simple secret for getting whatever we desire in life, whatever it is? Could be joy, could be money, could be wealth, could be appreciation, could be anything. It's very simple. I mean, very simple now that I know it, now that people have told me, now that I can relate to it because I experienced it as well. The simple thing is, you got to give what others want to them. I'll repeat it again. You want something? The way the universe works, it's all about give and take philosophy. What does not work, I'll tell you. 30 years of my life, I've all been only taking. I have been a taker all my life, right? Right from my parents. My mom should make the best of food. Even the food is a little bit this side, that side, the salt is a little bit this side, that side. I will be like, what is this, mom? If you are doing like this, I will go and eat in hotel. A hotel, I will not go and cook. I will go and buy. And I used to be like this. My dad, what is this? You are not buying me a cycle. My friend has that cycle. You have not got me a cycle. What kind of appa are you? Yes. And schools, I would go and say, hey, give me the best training. Am I the best student? Never. But give me best teaching. And I would speak against the teacher. What kind of teacher is a gub teacher? Only one teacher good, every other teacher gub. Right? So take. And when I get a whatever rank in college, rank means what? CET, everybody gets a rank only now. So clearly, I like things where we don't fail. Just as a joke, you take it. One of them is CET, where no fail, everybody rank. 30,000 other rank, 40,000 other rank, 1 other rank, isn't it? The other place where I know we will all succeed. It's just a play of words. It's just a fun, all right? The only place where we are all going to succeed is in death, you see? Because what do they say when a person dies? He passes. There is no failure there, Pass, right? Everybody passes, right? There is nobody who fails there. Just kidding, right? Just a play of words. I heard this yesterday. I wanted to tell you. But anyway, coming back to this topic, just to end this monotonous discussion, the secret is this. The way the universe works, and it's very simple to understand. Water goes up the clouds, comes back and comes as rains, that is taken by the plants. The plants grow, they yield fruits or flowers. They are taken up by humans or by other animals. They eat it, and the animals are eaten by other animals. That is captured by humans, and they eat that, and humans eat it, and they build stuff. They die, they go back to earth, and again it's a repeat cycle. It is all about give and take. Be very conscious about this, guys. Don't take time like me to understand this, right? Be conscious about this. The universe and nature gives you provided you are a giver. If you are a taker, then the universe doesn't give you all the time. It stops at some point in time. When we are young, universe always gives us, it gives us love and affection, it gives us security, it gives us everything, right, based on our parents and the place we are born with, people we are born with, etc. But after we become older, we need to be very conscious, or relate to yourself and see how much am I taking from this universe, how much am I giving from this universe. And I am saying be very selfish. I am not saying be very, extremely altruistic and selfless, go give dana of all your money, go give dana of all your clothes. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying be selfish. Be selfish. Desire. Have big desires. I want to achieve this. I want to have this goal. Big goals, as we talked about the other day. Have big goals. Be selfish. I want to achieve that. But learn what is the technique to achieve that goal. The simple technique to achieve all your goals and desires is this. You need to give away something to somebody who needs it. Let me quote a simple analogy and you will be able to easily relate to it. Bear this with me, 5 minutes, and I won't spend so much time again. But there was a saint. He had some 100 followers. He called all the 100 followers to a room and he said, look, I have brought balloons. And he gave balloons to each one person. All right? And he said, blow the balloon. All of them blew the balloon. And he said, tie it up with whatever different color ribbons. They tie it up with different colored ribbons. And he said, this is your balloon. I mean, usually whenever something becomes ours, including a silly pin or a pen, we have attachment towards it. Hey, Nandu. You might have found a pen yesterday, but if your friend takes it, after 5 minutes, put a pen. Isn't it? We are very attached to our things, isn't it? So he says, the saint says, this is your life. All right? This is your life. All right? And he says, make you, write about your name there and whatnot. So he writes the name and he writes, this is my life and blah, blah, blah. Now, he says, this is your life. Imagine it. Now, be very careful with your life, the balloon. Next room, go and keep all the balloons and come. So everybody goes to that room. 100 people are there. They go to the room. They beautifully place the balloons everywhere and come. And now, after all the 100 people come back, the saint, after 5 minutes, says, quickly go grab your life and grab your balloon and come. You understand? He stresses on be quick. Everybody runs into that room. You can imagine what might have happened, right? Suddenly the saint starts hearing pat pat dum dim, right? Somebody is stamping on one balloon, somebody is holding somebody else's balloon, they are blasting it, somebody is falling on top of it, some few people run on two other people. There is a lot of commotion, lot of sounds, lot of scolding. Suddenly the saint says, stop. He asks them, come back. All the 100 people come back. Only about 5 people would have got their balloons. And he asked them, why? What happened? Why were you not able to get your balloon? Had you not marked your name on the balloon? Everybody says, I had marked the name. Why was it a problem? And everybody comes with complaint. And I was going to get my balloon there. This fellow had put his balloon there. And he came in between. And this fellow, dandig he was. Right? He did not allow me to get my balloon. Another fellow stepped on my balloon. All these examples that they give. Then finally the saint says, I'm sure you can easily guess. He says a very simple thing. This is exactly how your life is. All of you have desires and you are going behind it. The simple thing that you don't know is while you go behind your desires, you stamp on other people's desires. You make other balloons go, kaput. And that is why you will never get your desire too. The simple thing that you need to do is this. All that you needed to do. Anyway, every balloon has a name, no? Why did you have to go behind your balloon? All you have to do is whatever balloon you could get, you could have lifted it out. There was a name, no? You should have just shouted out the name. If you just shout out that person's name, then that person will come to you. You give him the balloon. Would he be a happy man or not? You are now being instrumental in him achieving his desire. Same way, would another person find your balloon and call out the name and you get the balloon or not? This is the simple truth of life, is what he says. That you don't be so focused on your goal that you trample other people's goal. You become an instrument in other people achieving success. If you help other people in getting what they want, then you will get what you want. Because the entire universe is nothing but a give and take. It's a circular give and take. This is all, that is the secret of life, guys. Please do this. I'm telling you, see for yourself, how much are you taking? How much are you giving? If what you are giving is less, then see and try to start giving more. And let me also tell you the discrepancy of this universe. The good thing of the universe is how much you give and how much you take need not be same. You know what is the multiplication factor? 1000. If you give one smile today to a stranger, 1000 strangers will give you smiles. This is the multiplication factor. You don't need to worry. The environment, the universe has been constructed in such a way that you don't need to give 100 and you take back 100. No, you give 100, you will get 100,000 back. This is the beauty of the universe, guys. That is why all of us get goodness even though we are takers, isn't it? I have never left a single comment online. I have never shared a single blog to any person. I have never written a single blog to help somebody else. You think I will get the best of the things in life? No way. You have to be a giver. You have to be a giver. And I'm putting it in the same way. If I can do something to help you get your goal, now tell me, I say, think about it. If your goal is to get a job while you come here, and now because of this, because of what training we do, you get a job, you think I need to worry about getting students? No way. You will go and tell 50 other people. I won't even need to tell you. You will go and tell, hey, Java course, ಅಲ್ಲಿ go. ಬೇರೆ course, ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗು. Job ಬೇಕಾ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗು. Job ಆಗಿದೆಯಾ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗು. Is it not? You will tell that. Will I get what I want or not then? Absolutely. This is the simple trick of life, guys. That's why I told you day one itself to start practicing this. Start teaching other people what you want to learn. You want to learn threads? You have doubts in threads? Call your friend, call somebody else, call a junior, go upstairs, go outside. Some other batch people will be there. Tell them, threads ಆಗಿಲ್ಲತ್ತಾನೆ ಬಾ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ. Teach them threads. They might not understand. You will. Secret of gaining is giving away what somebody else needs. Help other people achieve their goals. Automatically the universe will conspire and universe will give you what you want, and you will be surprised but by how much quantity you get. You might want a small thing, universe will give you a big thing. This is the simple trick of life, guys. Please start following this, and this is experiential. This is not theoretical, meaning this is not logical. This is experiential. Experience this. Help somebody else. You want some joy in your life, get some joy for somebody else, or make somebody else get what they want. Automatically you will get joy in your life without a shadow of doubt. When the first time I learned this, I thought, what kind of nonsense this is? This is illogical. How can I giving something, helping somebody else give me something? It beautifully works, exactly as the balloon principle. It exactly works. You give something to somebody, somebody else will give you something back. It has been chronicled, documented in multiple scenarios, right? So that is why you need to be a giver. Be very conscious, because then the universe will heap you with whatever you want, and whatever you don't want also you will get. Whatever you never imagined also you will get. And that's the beauty of the universe, guys. So my request, take this feedback and try to implement it and see if it works. You would have probably read or seen the movie called The Secret. This is the essence of it. The essence of this secret of life. This is one. There are some 3-4 secrets. I will tell you as we go along. In spring, every class, last 5 minutes I'll tell. Today I took a long time, but last 5 minutes I'll tell you. These are the simple secrets of life. You want to achieve great success, not enough to be smart, not enough to be a hard worker. You have to do these things. Learn the way the universe works, right? Then everything will fall on our feet, so to say. Excellent. Thank you for allowing me to tell you that. So now, what I want to do is, I have no idea of time. Okay, sorry. All right, so I'm not going to start spring now. So we will be starting spring afresh, because I need about 3 to 3.5 hours time to make you understand what spring is all about. And I'll be starting off with core spring. And spring learning is fantastic. You will enjoy it, right? Not as dry as your servlets JSP was, right? Spring is beautiful. You will totally enjoy learning. We will start spring learning afresh from tomorrow. But today, what we want to do in the next 2 hours is to build our MVC implementation. So take out your laptops. We'll have our MVC lab. Whatever you have already built, let's build on top of it. If you have not built anything, you start the MVC implementation now. Today, no matter what, by the end of the day, you should have finished your incoming data use case, outgoing data use case. You should be in a place to start the contact app project. That is the aim of today. No matter what, make it happen, please. And we'll take the help of lab instructors, myself, whoever is there, to take the assistance. And remember, if you have learned something, teach it to your pakkat person, right? Teach it, right? You don't need to become a trainer or teacher, but make this a part of your daily routine. 5 to 10 minutes, teach somebody else something. And especially if you are a person who don't know technology well or who don't know communication well. Especially. Because some people I know, even in your batch, automatically many people will come and ask you things. But others, you start giving. That person who always teaches, no, you go and tell him, ಈ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಬಾ, ರೈಟ್ ಸರ್ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಬಾ. Read about it 5 minutes, go and tell him. Whether he understands or not is secondary. You do this, start giving every day, and miracles will soon happen in our lives. Thank you very much. Let's start the lab immediately. You can take a few minutes break.